Well, we are live here with Coffee with Humans, a fantastically wonderful Wednesday with Michael Butler. Michael, welcome to Coffee with Humans.
Thanks, Jason. I had other plans to sit outside and have some s'mores, but it's cold. And your video reminded me of it. So I was like, you know what? I think I'll be here with Coffee with Humans today.
All right. Well, welcome to the warmth of the indoors.
Yes,
it's cold
definitely.
where I'm at too, man. I'm getting a little bummed about this, but I'm hunkering down. I do love like sweatshirt and sweater weather though.
Yes, there is something about sweatshirt and sweater weather. Being from the Northeast, I like that. It just the clothing, the way you dress, it's a little bit more comforting. But I do like to be able to be in shorts and a t-shirt in January on occasion.
Yeah, I also bought a weighted blanket recently,
Really?
So I can cuddle up on the couch with 20 pounds of weight, which is. People use it for anti-anxiety. I just use it for a general level of comfort.
Interesting. A 20-pound blank. Well, a
20-pound weighted blanket.
Weighted blanket. Okay. That just for comfort's sake. There's no other.
There's something about pressure. There's something about just pressure on your body. Mm-hmm. It's scientifically proven that pressure on your body creates a I don't know if it's an endorphin release, but it's like it has a comforting effect. It's why babies need to be held. It's why people who suffer from anxiety, a level of like squeezing or holding or hugging. And so I've got a 20-pound weighted blanket because no one wants to hug me.
That's so sad. Can I give you a virtual hug?
My daughter's she's a teenager, and so she goes through phases where sometimes she hugs me and sometimes she doesn't.
Yes, mm-hmm. I can understand that. I have 3 sons. My middle son stopped hugging when he was about 8.
Oh.
And he was like, nope, I'm not hugging you. And he would literally like fight back. And he would even fight back with my wife as to not hug. And it's interesting.
Isn't that a shame?
Yes, it is, because I guess it makes him feel, make him feel all of the emotions and icky on the inside, I guess I'll say.
Yeah. Nobody likes emotions. Down with emotion.
Those fickle things, they always change.
That's true. Well, true to form, Coffee with Humans. We in this case have met before, but not in this circumstance. I was on your show, Business Leader Spotlight, which I think is I've seen it on LinkedIn before. Is that true? Is that where that's at?
Yes. So it's basically, and not to be salesy by any means, to stick to the rules. It basically
don't violate the rules.
Is basically a show where I just go around and I interview people in business who are doing things and identify some of the things that they've learned and help people kind of connect with others and say, hey, if Jason was able to do it, or if one of my recent interviews, Bill was able to do it, hey, some of the things he said can help me do it as well. Yeah. And it's actually a channel on YouTube that I have as well, but I will not say the name, but it is available on YouTube.
Yeah? Business Leader Spotlight?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. That's cool. Well, people should go check out Business Leader Spotlight. I've watched a couple episodes, admittedly, only after I was on it with you.
Well,
I think, though, how you just phrased it, I thought was really special, because you're like, if he can do it, you can too. That I feel like I'm not sure if that was a dig.
It's one of those things. I'm to be a little transparent, and this is one of the things we talked about, is the conversation can go anywhere. Mm-hmm. Is people have asked me, is like, Michael, how were you able to do that? I don't ever look at myself as like a guy that's got a real special set of skills. I'm not like the guy from Taken. I'm not Liam Neeson.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, I've got a very special set of skills.
I don't have like that. However, I do know that if you do certain things consistently, you're going to get a lot better results than people that are just talented, that are inconsistent. So that's what I try to highlight for people, is that a lot of the things that people do is hard work and diligence can cover the gap in a lot of areas where you may think you're not talented. And you may find out that, hey, there is a specific talent there just through learning that hard work and that discipline.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a viewer right now live, Erica Smith. She says, good morning, Jason. Oh, with a heart. Good morning, Erica.
That's,
Pleasure to have you joining us today. I'm sure she was going to say good morning, Michael, too. With two hearts, probably.
no, it's all right. It's your show. It's all about you, Jason.
That is not true. Hey, there we go. Anthony, good morning, Jason, and Michael, and Erica, too. Yes, and we got a handful of other people who are joining us as well on YouTube and Facebook. If you want to join the chat, drop your comments in the chat. We're actually, if you've not seen Coffee with Humans before, here's how I'm describing it. It's raw, unfiltered conversations between strangers who become friends.
Yes.
And I think that's pretty true. It's the only rule is no sales calls. What is going on here? Good morning, Michael, with a kiss. My gosh, it's getting heated.
Oh, okay.
Well, so Michael, what's been on your mind recently?
What's been on my mind recently? Oh, all kinds of fun stuff. Just like, well, first, just been thinking about the end of this year because things have changed so many different times, and it seems like we're almost changing back to what we changed to previously. And then just looking at, okay, I personally, around December timeframe, I usually start slowing down and start to think about what I want to do for next year. And sometimes that gets challenging because, or for me this year, this is the first time it's really been a challenge in the sense that is like, I have no expectations for what's next. So it's a lot more freeform where I have to be a little bit more creative as, okay, what are my plans beginning in January? What are the types of things that I want to be able to accomplish next month and into next year? So that's one of the big things that's been on my mind. The other piece, it's actually an interesting conversation I was having with my wife before we got on. We got to talking about English, and I don't know, English class like when you were in high school.
Okay.
A very random subject of conversation, but we were talking about how when you'd read, a great novel or something along those lines, I was that student in class that I didn't see past the words on the page. And I still work very hard to try to see past the words on the page. But I'm just the way I read, I just see the words. I don't see a lot of subtext. I don't see a lot of emotion. I don't see a lot of hidden pieces. And I used to get the question from teachers a lot is like, okay, so what do you see there? And I used to say things like, well, repeat back the words that were on the page, but in my own form. And they were like, what else? And I'm like, that's what I see. I don't see anything else. And it was like, well, if they're asking me for what else, give me a clue as to what else you're looking for me to see.
Don't be cryptic.
Exactly. I'm not, and it's just the kind of makeup of how I think about things is that I kind of see on a very linear scale in some ways.
You're kind of matter of fact.
Exactly. It's like, if you're not going to say what you mean, then why are you saying anything?
Okay, so hold on. You said you were having this discussion with your wife, and you said that was about English class, which I'm calling bullshit on. I think you were having this discussion about something she asked you to do, or some conversation you had, and you didn't get the subtext.
No,
it was okay.
No, it was literally it started. The root of it is that I'm in a personal development class, and there was a homework assignment. And we were talking about that, and that led into English and understanding things. Mm-hmm. So that's where things went down the road of English, because I was like, I've gotten to the point where I've understood is that here's how I understand. I understand in this way. Not that I'm not trying to understand other things or trying to take in other information. It's just by default, here's where I see things.
Do you feel
go ahead.
How does that sit with you then? Are you feeling like you should be able to understand it in a different way? Or
I used to feel bad because I didn't. I used to beat myself up a lot because, especially, in school, if you couldn't tell, English was not my favorite subject.
Right.
But and it's taken me years to get to this point where it's like, no, that's part of that's my makeup. And I understand that as that's my makeup. It's not a bad thing, but I don't want to say it's a deficiency, but it's just the way I'm made. And understanding that and being comfortable with being able to realize, okay, I may not see it and I may have to ask questions and not get the part that I've learned is I don't have to be defensive about it anymore. Because when I was younger, I used to get upset about it. It was like, if you're asking me this question and I'm not answering you, why do you keep asking the question expecting a different answer?
Right. Gotcha.
So that's one of those random things that were going on this morning.
Well, that's a good insight.
Yes.
I think a lot of people find themselves in that situation where they look at a part of their personality or their tendencies and they think, I am not good enough because somebody else keeps pointing out how I am not able to do something or see something that they so clearly can. And right. I feel like we tend to ascribe some sort of value system on that, like, well, they're better than me in that thing, and that's where I think the defensiveness comes out. It's like, hey, stop telling me I'm no good.
Yes, I know. How do I say this? A lot of people are very now more emotionally in touch than they had been in the past, and sometimes for me there was always this underlying thought process is like, well, what's wrong with me? Why don't I see things like them? To your point of talking about how people kind of ascribe this quote unquote value system to their skill set and who they are. I know I've gone through that battle and that fight with being able to look at myself and say, well, you should be doing these things based on the fact that, well, those people over there are saying it, whether it's a complete change of myself or completely just trying to ascribe to myself a specific set of skills or specific way of doing things that may not be natural to me. It's just learning that and figuring out how to deal with it and overcome and be comfortable with myself, so to speak.
Yeah. That's kind of a journey, being able to be comfortable with oneself. I think a lot of people have a hard time with that.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, definitely.
So in your business leader spotlight thing that you do, I'm curious about this. Why do you do that?
Why do I do it? So I started it with, if we go back probably a month and a half, 2 months into being, shelter in place, work from home, all of the kind of changes that we went through this year with COVID-19 and pandemic and being able to deal with that. I was sitting down and I was looking at it and I was thinking, okay, what is it that people see in, small business owners, people that have made it to a specific career plateau, whether it's, chief executive officer, somewhere in the C-suites, vice president, senior vice president, any of those types of things. What are those things that most people will never find out unless they have a relationship with this person? And my thought was, well, let me see if I can develop the relationship and get them to talk about it and put it in a fashion and in a way where it's just a conversation with people and just talking about, okay, well, I'm remembering back to one conversation. I was talking with a guy who his family, while he was in university or college, his family went through a financial hardship and he had to basically switch from going to school full time to working full time and taking classes in the evening. And during that process, he got a job at a car dealership. In that job, basically that internship, I'll call it, is that they told him is like, everybody here has to be able to do all the jobs on the car lots. So he started as basically the janitor and moved his way up onto the sales floor. And one of the things that taught him was that everybody's valuable in being able to make the sale. even though the part may not look as glamorous as possibly the sales, being on the janitorial staff versus the sales staff, that taught him a lesson of understanding the value of everybody in that chain. And little things like that that are overlooked or undervalued, I thought would be beneficial in highlighting for people to be able to hear about that, to see those types of things coming out in conversation, where it's like, well, I see the importance of this, but why don't other people see it? They may see it, but it's been masked, it's been hidden, because you only get to see the one side of, okay, we need to get this work done.
Yeah.
But how do I use that to help me get to where I want to go? And being able to say that all of those little experiences are beneficial to everyone, as long as we know they're available to us and we know how to use them for ourselves.
How do you use that broadcast then for you? You're talking about how you're going to do it for everybody else, but what's in it for you?
There's absolutely nothing in it for me. I'm not trying to make a sale. I'm not trying to connect. For me, it's just about being able to have a conversation with people. It's similar to this. What I think there's a similarity in what we do is yours is live, mine is pre-recorded in the sense, but it's a lot about just the conversation piece, is where it's breaking down some of those barriers. So there's no direct value, and I haven't seen an indirect, okay, well, this is, what Michael gets out of doing that.
I did. Okay. So I don't want to disagree with you, but I'm going to take exception a little bit. But what did it for you personally? Because people only do things that they value. So what do you value out of having a conversation with a business leader?
What do I value is their insights and being able to share them with others. And because it goes back, I don't want to sound altruistic and it's like, oh, well, there's completely, but realistic.
Altruism is, just because people are altruistic doesn't mean they're not also selfish. There's something in it for them in everything, right? So I'm just curious, what is it for you? Because you don't do it for you don't do it for altruistic or only altruistic benefits. What's the benefit? Like, what is it in your psyche that, are you absorbing these things, or are you leveraging them, information or knowledge for your own personal growth, or is that what it is?
Yeah, definitely. I'm not sitting back and saying, putting this out there and saying, oh yeah, I did that great video and there was some great thoughts in it, but in casting them off to the side or anything like that. No, I'm taking from it just like what I expect people to watch the videos to do as well, is learn from it and hear the value, hear the takeaways, and say, okay, how can I apply this to my life? How haven't I been applying this to my life? So there is that piece that comes as a part of it, where it's like, oh yes, Michael is learning from it as well. So if you say that's the takeaway, yes, I'm learning something as well, and learning about how people have been able to get to where they've gotten to, their level of success in their lives.
Gotcha. So you were saying in the middle of that you your explanation of why you have these conversations, you thought, what if I could have just a conversation with these folks? What could I get information out of them that they wouldn't necessarily normally share? What has been a highlight? So of all the people you've spoken with, not what the best thing is. I don't know if you'll be able to come up with that, but what's a highlight? When I ask you what's a highlight of your show and who you've talked with, what's one of the highlights that comes?
One of the highlights I'll say is, it was one of the early interviews that I did, and it was a conversation about doing team meetings, stand-ups through Zoom calls or GoToMeeting or whatever the flavor of the month is. And what was said it was so insightful. It was like, I'll try to explain it or restate it, is that once you open up a video camera into somebody's life, even though it is a work-related meeting, you're now stepping into their life because it is their home. And you need to be mindful and respectful of that piece of it. It's not, it's not all business from the perspective of it being, yes, what we're talking about is business, but the things that are going on around them are personal. And you have to be able to be mindful of those two dynamics, because one of the examples I remember that I had early on during the pandemic was we were on a conference call with a group of people, and somebody's dog started barking because the FedEx guy dropped off a package, and the dog did not stop barking for like 5 minutes. And you could tell there was this awkwardness about what was going on. They're like, okay, what do we say? Is there something, can we, and you just have to sit back and you say, understand that is like, no, this is what's going to happen during these types of times where you open up your life in your home to people through a video camera and through a microphone and different things, and allowing them to experience that and be okay with the fact that it is going to make you a little bit uncomfortable at times, because you may hear somebody's kids' conversations, or significant other conversations in the background, animals, pets, all of those different.
Take out the garbage. I'm gonna get to it. I'm sorry. Exactly. Point A.
Yes. Or one that I can remember. I want to say was just yesterday. I heard my wife was working and somebody's landline rung while they were on a video call. And you're like, okay, that's awkward.
Right. It was a job offer. Like, excuse me, pardon me. Yes, how much does it pay? I'll be back. Right. Or like yelling at your kids, like, shut up, you're going to get daddy fired.
Yes. I don't know. There's this one commercial. I can't think of who created the commercial, but it's the guy, he's on a video conference and he's making a presentation to his board, and the little kids come in and they start pulling pencils and different things like that. And it was like, that's exactly what's going on right now.
Totally. Yeah.
If people have young kids, and they have to homeschool and they have to keep them mindful of what's going on, there's all this craziness and all of these different things happen. And it's like, oh yeah, that's real life.
Yeah. One of our Anthony here, Michael opening his house to me makes me want a glass of red wine. Me too, man. I've been looking at that picture the whole time and thinking, I hope he likes wine.
Actually, I'm not the wine connoisseur in my house.
Snap.
My wife is. So this is one of the things that she wanted. When we moved here, she wanted to have our kitchen with this theme, and that was some of the decorating and the decor pieces that we did was this picture, and making sure the wall, I don't know if you guys can see the actual color. It is almost
it's red wine.
A Merlot colored wine type thing. Yes.
Kurt's giving you a shout out.
Hey, Kurt, how you doing?
Good to see you, Mike Butler. Oh, yes, we had a conversation about whether you're Michael or Mike or Mikey before the broadcast. And I found out that people who know him well for years have called him Mike sometimes.
Yes. So people that I grew up around and things like that, they called me Mike. When I was younger, I never wanted to be called Michael, because Michael was always a sign that I was in trouble. Now, when I got a little bit older, Michael was like, because I moved away from home, I was like, okay, I can create my personality now. I can be Michael.
Yeah.
So now the reason why I have both is because some people know me as Mike, some people know me as Michael, and I'm okay with that. Now, you did throw out the one name that
I did,
the Mikey piece. So yes, I was called Mikey when I was young. Actually, my brothers, if they actually watch this, they still call me Mikey to this day.
As they should. They're brothers.
No, they shouldn't. No, that's not right. No.
So I've got a kid. My oldest son. His name is Nathaniel. He was named Nathaniel. At some point in time, people started calling him Nathan, and for a short period of time, he was okay with it. And then he started correcting people and saying, "No, it's actually Nathaniel." And I was like, what is going on here? And I thought, oh, that's a cool boundary to set. Names names have meaning. And what you just said there, you said, I moved out of my office. I was kind of creating my personality, and we create our identity, it seems, through names, right? So people call me Todd all the time. Like, people I've known for years will be like, thanks, Todd. Great to see you. And I'm just like, I overlook it now because there's no point to it. I'm like, whatever. It's a waste of breath to ask you to continue to call me Jason. My name is actually just legit Jason. That's what it is. And so sometimes when I introduce myself, what I've learned to do is not tell them my last name. They'll be like, and you are? I'll be like, I'm Jason. And in a situation where they want to know normally a last name, Jason Todd, because if I say Jason Todd, they're like, oh, Todd, that's a good name. Like, okay, thanks for listening. But I don't want to be that guy. So I'm just like, whatever. You can call me Bill or Bobby or Jim. It's fine.
No, yeah. Whatever. However it goes, it goes.
Yeah. I've been called much worse. So
yes,
I'll accept
definitely.
Jason or Todd.
At least it's some part of my name.
Right. Exactly. Well, I was telling you before the broadcast that we can talk about anything. We could even talk about sports, although I would not know anything of what you're talking about because I don't follow sports. Okay. Even though I do know what sports are, and I could hang with you. I could make it up.
So are you the guy that says go sports?
People are like, what's your team? I'll be like, what's your team? And they'll be like, I'm the hillbilly whatsits. And I'll be like, me too. I am too.
I didn't know anything about can we talk about the hillbilly whatsits? What they do? What's their specific sport?
Bottle cap throwing.
Bottle cap throwing.
You know what now we're treading on people in their places. But truth of the matter is there some places where there are certain things you can get away with in some places. And so, for instance, I was down paddling a river in Arkansas a number of years ago. Fantastic place to go. Totally off the grid. You couldn't get cell phone service if you tried. And so far out in the back that my navigation, which I thought was okay on my car, all of a sudden I was just like, I was legit driving down. I thought what was a highway, and on the dot, and there's this line, right? And I'm driving down the line. All of a sudden, the line disappears. I am still on the road. I know for a fact I'm still on the road, and it's like there's no road on my navigation. I thought, oh. I have ventured off into unknown territory. Like, why? Was there like some county carved out where they were like, no navigation, will never be mapped? I don't know. So I just and then it was probably 20, 30 minutes later, we finally got to this place where we're camping next to a river. Oh my God, it was amazing. Beautiful. Well, we went paddling down a river with a canoe. And then there was this time, it must have been 3 hours into this canoe trip. I thought we should have been at the spot where they'd let us out. And I thought, oh no, like, were we drinking too much and we missed it? Like, we're going to be paddling this river till, I don't know, are we going to get to like the Gulf of Mexico eventually? I don't know what happens. And because I'm not like a super experienced paddler, and like, what can go wrong? You're paddling a river. Yeah. So anyhow, upstream, this boat comes. It's a flat bottom boat with one of those motors that's just got this little stick in the water, and it's going, and we're like, we're going to ask him. So hey, they pull up, and we're like, hey, do you know where the takeout point is? Like, where do we get out? And they're like, well, there's about 3 shoals up that way. And I was like, okay. And I was like, I didn't know what to say because I don't know what a shoal is.
Right.
And I didn't know if it was, I didn't want to sound stupid by saying, what's a shoal? Like, I feel like this is something I should know, you know? And so then they drove off, and I was talking to my buddy. I'm like, what's a shoal? Like, how far is that? Is it 10 miles? Is it like convertible into kilometers, or where are we at? Turns out that the shoal is just where like the water comes up and then it like hits the side, and then the water like you just kind of go up to the next. It's like a turn. Mm-hmm. A shoal is just a turn in the river.
Interesting.
There's not a distance. That's not a thing. It could have been a mile. It could have been half a mile. It could have been 20 feet. Like, that's just a shoal. I don't know. It was probably another hour and a half or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Of paddling.
That sounds exhausting.
It was too long to paddle as an inexperienced paddler who's just not. But we had beer and guys raising cane in the middle of of a river in a beautiful, beautiful part of Arkansas, which I would return to happily. Um, but then I realized at the time, I was like, well, you know, you can't win any battles by measuring in shoals. So I'll stick with miles or minutes.
Okay, that I guess I'll have to take that one and try to analyze the profundity of can't win any battles, with shoals. Okay, we'll go with that one.
You can have that. I should have said that on your business podcasting. It never came up though.
No, I don't know if we got to going to Arkansas, but
nope, we didn't. I would highly recommend it.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, Anthony. Now we all know what a shoal is, just in case we're lost at sea. Absolutely. If the river, when you're lost at sea, ever just changes direction, that's a shoal.
Okay.
2 or 3 shoals out, you can get out. That's what I know. If you're not sure how long this trip is, count the shoals. That's the other key. Free wisdom here on Coffee with Humans.
Now the question is where will I be able to use that?
It's Wisdom Wednesday. Well, I've been keeping notes.
Okay.
For my ideas for Coffee with Humans. I'd love to have your opinion on this.
Yes.
So I'll start with the easy ones. What's your earliest memory?
My earliest memory. I was somewhere around 2 or 3 years old, and I snuck out of my bedroom, and I was sitting in the hallway trying to be sneaky to sneak some television while my dad and my stepmom were sitting on the couch watching TV. And while I was sitting there, I saw a penny. It was like, ooh, a penny. And at that age, the first few things you decide to do is like, oh, I can put this in my mouth. So I did. I put it in my mouth and I started to choke. And, making all that noise, my dad and my stepmother found me and they got it out of me. But that's the first memory that I have.
I was wondering if this was going to go to, and then I ate it. My second memory is them looking to make sure it came out.
Oh, yes. It came out, but it was just one of those things. The way I remember it pretty clearly up to the point where I grabbed the penny and put it in my mouth. And then it's like, almost like those old, what are those things? Projectors, the slide projectors where you have the film transparency. It'd show one film and then it show the next piece. That's how the memory is for me. It's like, okay, then it's blank for a minute. Okay, now I'm on somebody's lap. They're patting me on the back. Okay, next thing I know, the penny's coming out of my mouth. So it's like little black parts in the memory, but that's the earliest that I can remember.
Well, I'm glad you made it through that. That's good.
Oh, I'm very happy that I made it through that as well.
That's funny. What's another one? I can't ask that one. Here's one. What's number one on your list of things to do on a weekend?
Number 1.
Or 1 to 3. I'm terrible with top 10 lists, so this is not a fair question for a person like me. Maybe it's not fair for you either. I could never tell you what the first thing was. So the best thing, I don't know.
One of the things that I would say is number 1 is to be able to be left alone for 3 hours or so, just so I can read and just be by myself, just completely alone, like no bother, not having to take the dog out to go for a walk, not having to feed the dog, not having any of the kind of responsibilities of life but
Hmm.
just to be able to say, hey, I've got this time alone for myself, to not to just sit there and, put my feet up or anything and watch TV, but I'd just like to, be alone with my own thoughts, think, read, so on and so forth.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's insightful. That seems like it's probably part of your personality that you need to kind of escape the noise and the stuff going on so that you can just let your thoughts process and settle.
Yes, I'm one of those people that I've learned this the hard way, is that I process things by talking. So sometimes if you get me at the right moment, I'm saying things because I'm trying to think through it, not
Mhm.
as, okay, this is what it is. So during those times when I do have that solitude, I can think to myself. So basically, I can talk to myself, is what I'm saying,
Yeah,
where I can think through my thoughts and be like, oh, okay, this is what I'm trying to do, or trying to understand and rationalize what's going on.
yeah, that's super important,
Yes.
I would think.
Yes. Especially learning that, that you think through things by talking, learning that, I would say anybody that's got that, learn it as early as possible, because when you learn it later, you say stuff that you're like, I wasn't saying this as this is what it is. I was saying this as, okay, here's how I'm thinking through it. And it causes you a lot more pain when you don't realize that's how you think.
Gotcha. You're probably thinking of some particular circumstances
Oh, I'm
on
thinking
your,
of several.
yeah. How did you come about that understanding about yourself?
uh, it's taken me probably the better part of the last 2 years. And most of the times, I'll say most of the times, is because of conversations I was having with my wife.
Mhm.
We would be talking about a specific issue. And what I'm doing is I'm verbalizing what's going on in my head because I'm trying to process it,
Yeah.
but it's coming out as a part of the conversation. And I'm
Oh,
like, after the fact, I'm like, why is she upset at me? Because I'm thinking she understands that's what I'm doing, but I never realized that's how I actually process things. Long story, but
so in the show on those shows where like the character does something and then all of a sudden the character is like talking to the camera, you needed one of those talk to the camera moments,
yes,
but you were actually saying it to her.
yes, I needed
That
that break to say, okay, here's what's happening right now in my head, not
right.
as a statement of part of this conversation.
So how did you eventually have a conversation about, hon, I just need you to listen. I need you to like ignore the following, statement. I'll let you know when I'm ready for you to listen again. Or how have you reconciled that?
It's been a slow process, and it's still a process that's ongoing, I'll say, uh,
Mhm.
because when talking with her, I ask a lot of questions because I'm trying to understand. And now I've gotten to the point where it's like, okay, well, okay, now that I understand, okay, give me a moment and let me go kind of take that time to think through. And sometimes if the conversation it gets going fast, because one of the things, I respond quickly. So if I'm
Yeah.
put in a position, I can respond and I can keep going. But sometimes, as we know, those aren't the best responses that you have. They aren't all the way thought through. You don't see the ramifications of them. I can do that, but the results aren't always what I want, and I
Yeah.
have to continue. I continue to work on it, and figuring out and learning that it's okay, depending upon what the conversation is, to come back to it and not be afraid to be like, hey, I need to come back to this because I have to process this.
Right. Yeah. Giving each other space to be able to process at each other's individual speeds
Yes.
is um, difficult.
Oh yes. Oh yes. If somebody knows the secret, elixir to make it all just happen, please let me know.
I think the secret elixir is that you have to just do it. You have to go through it and
Yes.
figure it out.
Yes, definitely.
All right. So
Okay.
you ready for the awkward question that I can't ask, but I'd be curious to know how awkward do you think it is?
Okay, let's see.
I did not. I only wrote this on my paper. I didn't make this question up. What
Okay.
body part would you not want to get waxed? And would you be willing to wax it on air? That somebody legit said, hey, you know what question you should ask?
Wow, that's a really awkward question. That
Yeah.
on the scale, that's like number 10, maybe even 12.
Yeah.
Uh, so, what body part would you not want to be waxed?
Yep. I feel like this is a safe environment. You can tell us. I'll answer for you. You can think about it.
Okay.
I'm going to answer for me.
Okay.
I would not want my back waxed.
Yeah.
And no, well, I probably would wax it on air, but not on Coffee with Humans. That'd be weird.
I would say my legs.
Mm.
And no, I would not want to wax it on air, Coffee with Humans, or even my show. That would just, because I've seen, the reason why I would say no is because I've seen how people do waxing and the pain that they go through. So I am a sports fan, by the way, and I used to watch a show on ESPN2 with Mike Golick and Mike Greenberg. And
the mics.
Yes, Mike and Mike in the morning. And Mike Golick lost a bet, if I remember correctly, and he had to get waxed.
Did he?
On the show.
Stop it.
He had to have his chest waxed, if I remember the details correctly.
Oh.
And Mike played football. He's a big, strong guy. And to see the pain that he was in,
yeah,
I was like, there's no way I'm going to put myself before that. Before that kind of humiliation and just screaming, because I don't know how that pain would go about. So I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that to myself.
Sounds like a Dr. Seuss book. I would not wax them here or there. I would not wax them anywhere. That's that's true. Yeah. So many things I could say about this.
Yes. Yeah, that could go down a whole tragic road.
I have some pretty intense chest hair, and I trim it a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but when it first gets trimmed, it like sticks through the shirts. But my neck hair is really like bristly, and it destroys, like if I don't keep it down, it'll like destroy the top of my shirts.
Oh.
I know. You're like, oh.
I'm one of those people. While I was in the Marine Corps, we had to shave every day. I could go weeks and didn't have to shave because I just did not grow facial hair. And even to this point right now, it's like, sideburns and things.
It's been like 6 months.
Not that long.
Okay.
But yes, that's basically what it's like. Do you grow? Have you hit puberty yet? Like, I have, but
what a shame.
I just don't have the facial hair growth that some people experience now. We did have guys that would have to shave twice a day while I was in boot camp.
Oh my God! Right?
I was like, twice a day? They were like, yeah, they have a 5 o'clock shadow by 10 o'clock in the morning.
Oh.
I was like, wow, that's a lot of hair growth.
Right? Exactly. Can you imagine the amount of protein you need to eat to like continually creating all that hair? I don't know.
Yeah.
See, I told you we talk about anything. So yes. Marine Corps, what did you do in the Marine Corps?
So my job was my MOS was a 2542. It was what they called a comm center operator.
Okay.
So a comm center operator at the time was basically you sit and disseminate messages for the base, for the unit, however. Now, this job started before the advent of quote unquote computers and what we understand them right now. Email had just really started taking off. So my job transitioned from what I was trained to do as a comm center operator to basically a desktop support technician. So I got a lot of on-the-job training, and it was nice because, the late 90s and things, computers and desktop support, A+ certifications, MCSE certifications, all those were all the rage, and I was getting free training and getting paid for it in the Marine Corps. So
nice.
Yeah, fun stuff.
Where did all this go down? Did you travel the world, or?
I traveled part of the world. I got to go to outside of the country. I got to go to Okinawa, Japan. I got to go to mainland Japan. We climbed Mount Fuji, and I have a kind of interesting story about that. Went to Shanghai, China, and Busan, Korea. So I got about a month and a half time on a cruise ship, so to speak.
Yeah.
Then I came back to the States and spent my time in beautiful Camp Pendleton, California.
Okay.
Yes. So I don't know why I even threw this out there, but see, you did this to me when you said, "Oh yeah, the conversation will go anywhere." So when we got part of our training when I was in Okinawa was to go to mainland Japan, and basically we do some training at the foot of Mount Fuji. We did that. While we were there, we were alerted that a typhoon was coming in.
Oh.
So part of our training, we're like, okay, well, once we got done with training, we're supposed to climb Mount Fuji as a unit together. We set out that morning, the clouds are coming in, the typhoon's coming in, but based on the weather reports and about the time we're supposed to travel, we should be able to get up and down the mountain before the typhoon hits. So we get there, we're starting out, we go up we start climbing the mountain, all those types of things. And I'm in probably some of the best shape of my life. We get past the first checkpoint or so, and there's a split in the little walkway. My friends go around this way, I go around this way. As I go around this way, I also fall over like this. Basically, my face, I lose all the color in my face, and basically altitude sickness got me.
Okay.
So they send me back down the mountain, and one day I will climb Mount Fuji on my own successfully. That's one of those goals in life, because I'm not going to let a mountain beat me. But that's a different story. As they continued to climb the mountain, the typhoon comes in faster.
Oh no.
So they're literally, before I left, you could see clouds, like reach out and touch a cloud, but they get me back down. But there were guys that made it up to the mountain. They were in the middle of clouds, like I'm holding on to a cloud, and just the different stories of how people talked about it, and the interesting ways, how you feel inside of a cloud and to be that high and all of those different types of things. But that's my little story about Mount Fuji. I was, 20 something years old, and a mountain kicked my butt by something that I never expected, altitude to have such an impact on you when you're climbing a mountain. But
yeah,
what you don't know.
Yeah, totally. It can really take a person out.
Oh, yes.
I know that people I have a couple of friends who've done mountaineering, and they'll travel out to Colorado or Alaska or whatever, and they'll show up a week in advance, and slowly acclimate to the heights out there. While your body builds up red blood cells and stuff. Yeah. So you've lived in, if I get this straight, Korea, Japan, China, and California.
I didn't live in Korea or China. I went there, visited, kind of was there for a few days. Yes.
So of those places, which place would you go back to if you could choose?
If I could choose, wow. Yeah. I would say I would probably like to go back to Shanghai, China.
Yeah.
I've seen the pictures of what the area has transitioned from to what I saw in the late 90s. We were coming in, and it was very industrial kind of area. There were no, tall buildings. There weren't, modern skyscrapers and things like that. It was very industrial and agricultural. But I had met someone when I was at an event, and somehow we got on the conversation of Shanghai, and she actually had pictures of Shanghai. And I was like, whoa, because I remember the waterway that we were coming in on, and that was the same waterway. And it was like, what did all of this change? It's like, these two different pictures in time, kind of snapshots, just showing, okay, here it was at one point, here it is right now. And you're like,
Yeah.
Wow, there's drastic changes. And you just kind of see what happened, because when I was in China, I was introduced to what true overpopulation was. And what I mean by that is when people would get onto, public transportation and the like.
Okay.
I grew up kind of in the city, so I understand when a bus is crowded, people are squeezing in trying to get people on there. When I was over there, everybody at the stop would get on the bus. They literally had people that would push people in and close the doors. When I say push people in, they put their foot on somebody and pushed, and they forced the doors closed.
Wow. And
it was literally people's faces were up, mashed against window. It was in your head, you're like, this cannot be real.
Yeah.
I can't really be seeing this. This is not how people, behave. This is not how people are treated. And you're like, oh my goodness, that's really happening. And, then the other pieces was how they had cars and they had motorcycles, and, to see the motorcycles weaving in and out of traffic, and, sometimes they were bumped and the driver of the car kept on going, and you just see certain things that takes your Americanized kind of perception of things, that, okay, this is how things are, and it alters it, and gives you this whole different perspective that you, in some instances, you're not even sure how to rationalize and even understand fully.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally different culture. It's something it would be absurd to have here in the United States. I think everybody would rebel, call their leaders or something like that, and say, put more buses on the stops.
Yes.
Oh. So how did that experience shift you or change you?
How did it change me? One of the things I'll say that it did for me is it got me into the mindset of understanding that bad is relative. And when I say bad is relative, it's relative to your understanding of what bad is, like right now. It may be a difficult time for you, use the example of, for some people, bad for them is that, they've been furloughed for their job and such. For others, it's, they're completely out of work. Now, I can't say your bad is worse than my bad, and I can't say my bad is worse than yours, and vice versa. But we have to understand both people's bad is bad. So seeing what was bad in China gives me an understanding of, well, I won't even say what was bad. What I classified as bad, that was life for them. Some people, that life is what it is. There's no me saying, oh, well, that's bad for them. No, that's what life is for them. That they have to work with the pieces that they have, and in turn taking that to say, okay, Michael, what are you using as a quote unquote crutch to say, oh, well, this is bad, as an excuse for, I don't want to do anything.
Right.
Or I want to stay, well, it's bad, I can't do anything. Now that's kind of how I took it, to remove the excuses from myself, and be able to understand that it is it's a growing and learning process. It's not just because I didn't see that immediately when I was over there. It took me years to kind of come to that conclusion,
Sure.
because at first I was shocked. The with just the impact of seeing something like that, with that type of crowding and people living their lives and that becoming a part of their norm. You're at the point where you don't have words for it for a long time.
Sure. It's a totally foreign experience.
Exactly.
And I think the word bad is a judgment word, right? Bad is only bad in reference to or is measured against an alternative. And
Right.
so the alternative, so factually, the bus is extremely crowded, or the transit system is extremely crowded. The facts are not inherently bad or good; they just are.
Right.
And could it be, or should it be, less crowded? Also, there's not enough information to determine that. Is it unsafe? Okay, that might be more information to determine should it be less or more crowded. What people will accept, though, and I think that's, you make a very good point. What people accept as good or bad or right or wrong or for me or not for me is vastly different around the world.
Yes.
And a person's experience on a very crowded transit system in China or India, where people are being jammed onto the buses or jammed onto the trains, is something that we would not accept here probably in the United States.
Right.
But doesn't make us better or more good and
Right.
them more bad.
Yes.
It just is.
Right.
And there are lessons, all sorts of lessons for work. People have done global missions work that sometimes we apply or presume that just because we want something, that everybody else wants something as well. And when in their culture it might be meaningless to them, they don't care about the same things that we care about. And immersing ourselves in another culture is super important to understand how not to disrupt their lives, because they think we're the oddities. They
Yes.
think we're the weird ones.
Yes.
We got a couple here comments here. Tony, thank you for your service. I think he joins all of us in saying that. Thank you for what you've done for your nation.
Oh, my gosh.
And then Katie, living in other places allow you to become more aware of the day-to-day of other cultures or people and the norm around the world. So true. Yeah. Our normal is not necessarily everybody else's normal. Everybody's normal is different, even in the United States.
Yes.
Like in Arkansas, you could measure things in shoals if you want to.
Yes.
Going to be very hard to live like that. I'll measure them in miles. Thanks.
Yeah.
It's the way it is, right?
Right.
What I know and what somebody else knows, completely different, and that's totally okay. And what an opportunity, and the essence of this show, what an opportunity to just join with other people around the world and just have a conversation, learn about each other.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming up to the end of our time. This is fantastic, Michael. I'm glad that you joined me on Coffee with Humans. Any final words that you want to throw out there to the universe? This is your moment.
Wow. That's
I know,
like
right?
a big
I made it
stage.
so big. I was like, to the universe.
My only thought was when you were talking about the differences in environment, where people, even in the United States, how we have so many differences. The first thing that I thought of was when I was in boot camp and we talked about soda. So I'm from the Northeast. We call it soda. Okay. I know other people, call it pop, or they call it a Coke. What kind of Coke do you want? And it's like, and that is probably the essence of everything, is that we're all in the same place. We all, in some instances, we all want the same thing, but we just have a different term for it.
Oh, that's profound. Yes, we all want the same thing, but we have a different term.
And getting past the fact that the term is different and understanding, okay, what am I trying to convey? What is the person that I'm talking to? Understanding them well enough to say, okay, when they say they want a pop, what does that mean to them? Not what does it mean to me? And that's the hardest part, that I'm speaking this to myself personally, because
Yeah.
I know how many times I've tried to understand it as, what does it mean to me, and try to explain it from there. And it's like, no, stop doing that. Or more specific to the way I say it to myself, shut up, Michael, and
Right.
listen. and being able to just go down the road of understand what it means to the other person and go from there, because they're 9 times out of 10, and I'm throwing out my own factual numbers because, you can make the number say whatever you want them to say. And this is my fudge factor, so to speak, that, hey, 90% of people want the same things. We just don't know how to communicate it to somebody else. And that's where we get in trouble.
Good points. I'll take your word for it. Well, this has been Coffee with Humans. Thanks, our viewers and listeners, for joining us. Michael, thanks so much for being on Coffee with Humans. A pleasure to speak with you.
Yes, sir.
And I'll see you in just a second, Michael.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Sounds good. Thank you.
One of the things I love about Coffee with Humans are the raw conversations I get to have, meeting new people just like you. If you or someone you know should be on Coffee with Humans, go to coffeewithhumans.com. Remember, the only rule is no sales calls.
This has been Coffee with Humans. Subscribe to get updates or click to have coffee with me. coffeewithhumans.com.